IVM.
What is liberalism? Hello and welcome to Explain Like I'm 10, where we ask some small questions which have some big complicated answers. I'm your host Meghnad, and this is an episode of our continuing series on political ideologies. This is an episode on liberalism. So who is a liberal? What is a liberal? Where, when, what? You hear this word so many times nowadays in a very different connotation. So we thought, why not do this with our fiercest, most, loyal liberals in the office. Say hello to Librandu Nikhil.
Hello, I was waiting when the word comes.
Say hello to Libtard Abbas.
Hello.
And I am just a liberal. Meghnad. I'm very liberal, guys.
Pseudo-secular.
Yeah. Even if I don't believe it, everybody wants me to believe it. So
Yes.
I have just said, okay, fine, I'm liberal now. But yeah, are you guys liberal? Do you identify as liberal?
That's what I've been told from the tweets I make.
Yeah. Like, I think I would fit the conventional definition of liberal. Now, if you can call it a stereotype, maybe that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, left-leaning for sure. Liberal, I don't know. We'll find out in this episode.
Yeah.
If
So
I qualify.
So we need to figure out, I think by the end of this episode, it will be good to sort of figure out if we are actually liberals
Yes.
or not. Or we are some versions of
Right,
liberals.
right.
Yeah.
That's also one thing. So so you guys have read up on this. We gave you the topic a little bit earlier than usual. This is not a surprise episode.
Yeah, that's true.
So what did you think? What is a liberal exactly?
So, I would think a liberal would basically be someone... Now, I'm not going to give the stereotypical... Anybody who's not a conservative is a liberal. That's...
Then तेरे को conservative define करना
Yeah, exactly. That I haven't read up on.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think liberalism would be towards the, if we are to speak of the political spectrum, there I think it would fall somewhere towards left of the center, but not like hardcore leftist
But what does
propagandist.
that mean? Explain like I'm 10, my friend. ये क्या left right की बात
We'll
कर
start
रहे हो?
from 100.
Yeah.
We'll break it down. We'll
Yeah.
break it down.
If
we'll
this
break
is the center, I am left of center. You're right of center.
Thanks, Abbas.
Yeah. Insert inappropriate joke here. But yeah. So if we are to break it down even further, the way at least I understand it is, these are more, to me at least, more universal concepts of like, humanity and the religion of man, as they say, or like, just universal human values that we are all beyond nations and beyond states and beyond like linguistic identities and all of that. I would think anybody who's a little more conservative is somebody who's protective of those ideologies. Like they care a lot about their first their nation, then their language, then their state, then their region, so on and so forth. But liberalism, to me at least, is an identity which is more universal, which is more like we are all the brotherhood of man, and that we are all a human race, and that those inculcating human values basically. That's
Thank
where I
you.
would think.
Thank you, John Lennon.
Imagine.
Imagine if
I was
there is
like,
no country.
The Miss India sachet is yours.
Abbas, what do you think?
Okay, so from whatever the half-ass research I did on
Yeah.
the internet and whatever I had in my mind, if I could combine both of them and give a simple answer, essentially someone who stands up for the rights of the individual, someone who speaks up for freedom of speech and expression, someone who stands up for secularism and inclusion, is essentially, in a broader sense, a liberal. Someone who has liberal values. Now, that liberal values thing also, there's a bit of a confusion about what exactly that entails. But basically, ऐसा इंसान जिसको who will accept everyone and everything that comes their way or give it a fair chance is a liberal, according to me.
Yeah.
That's actually the dictionary definition is what you gave
Yeah.
there in the end, which is very interesting. I feel I every time I put this as the definition, which is willing to respect or accept behavior
Yeah.
or opinions different from one's own and open to new ideas, is what being liberal means,
Yeah.
right? When you put this out in the open, everybody's like, no, I don't agree with this definition. So what are you talking? Again, mean, the whole point of being a liberal is that you're open to such a definition, but no, I'm not. It's very ironic.
Yeah.
So, so like I was also thinking about whether I'm a liberal or not. I would say I am in the strictest of that definition, because
Yeah.
I feel like one of the basic tenets of a liberal is that they are curious.
Yes.
I would say that is a basic sort of requirement for you to be a liberal, so that not only are you open to other ideas, but also you should go looking for other ideas also. Like, I think that's step one.
Yeah.
So if you go by the dictionary, being a liberal, I think, is just curiosity, I guess, and being able to also put your foot in other people's shoes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Bit more empathetic than usual. Like
Bit more empathetic, yeah.
And like, I think, as you said, right, liberal would be someone who's just okay with people being what they want to be. And does not does not have their own values or ideologies to impose upon them. I think that's
But
where you can
that
draw the line.
itself is a value and ideology. That's the whole point,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Yeah.
that by not having like any specific ideology to
It
impose,
is still an ideology.
it is an ideology as well.
But I think then the imposition is the distinction there then, would you say?
I mean, it's a conservatism. If you have to look at the other side. Again, these are heavy words, guys. Please
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
go by the strict definitions. We're just having a friendly conversation. Like the opposite of liberal, let's put it that
Yeah.
way, would be someone who is stuck to their ideas.
Yeah.
Simply put. So, which means that they are resistant to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means that any new idea that comes to them, they sort of goes through this filter of existing ideas and mostly gets rejected.
Yeah.
So that would be liberalism, right? But does that also include that person imposing their ideology on other people, culture?
I think again, like Nikhil mentioned, the methodology of the imposition is, I think, what it comes down to.
Okay.
There is, as a liberal, if the imposition is a little more what we perceive as forced, then we're like, nahi, this is wrong. If you're liberal, you should let them be. But in a way, by saying that, like you said, we are also imposing it, but maybe not in as stringent a way as what we perceive the other person is, if I'm making sense.
Let's take an example. I think it'll be better to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Kerala Story. Right. So Kerala Story released.
Lovely example.
Yeah, exactly. Kerala Story released recently caused like a shit ton of controversy. In Kerala, they went to the court before it was released and
Yeah.
said that the teaser is wrong. Take it down. They made them correct it from 32,000 to 3, which has
Slight
become a
correction.
meme also.
Yeah,
Very slight.
Yeah, very slight
Chota sa change.
correction. But the movie did release,
Yeah.
right? In West Bengal, it was banned. The bastion of quote-unquote liberalism, as they call it. The other bastion, Kerala, allowed it. But the other side, other friends did not. So, as a person, are you guys okay with this ban?
I wouldn't say so. Like, even if you disagree with something, I think we were mentioning this on an episode of Peach 10. I think the antidote thing. I think this applies here also. Banning a piece of information only creates more curiosity about it. I think
Streisand effect.
Yeah, it keeps it in the news even more, and it reaches even more people.
But you
And-
know, no, okay, so to look at it this way, right? You're giving me a reason based on what the
Yeah, no, I
fallout
understand.
would
Yeah,
be.
that's the practical reason. But
Right.
even in principle, I don't think banning anything makes it okay. Like, there
Okay.
should still be room for people to say what they have to say.
Even fake
Okay.
news?
Can I ask you a counter question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So why aren't we putting footage of ISIS beheadings in theaters? Should that be allowed to be screened?
Well, now that is in absolute sense, right? I think even then, if it's a choice of people to watch it, I think even absolutely they should be
But
allowed to
don't
watch
you
it.
think those people who are going to watch an ISIS beheading video on a big screen, you'd address what's wrong with those people, right? I mean, and they won't come out as the same people they went to go inside to
Yeah,
watch
but
that
I
thing.
think then that's where governance also comes into picture, no? Is that,
Okay.
we should have a system of governance that is efficient enough to let people, express themselves absolutely. And because end of the day, what matters is the consequences, right? What will come out of people watching ISIS getting beheaded, right? If
What
it's
will
just-
come out of it?
Yeah, again, so our whole spectrum of things can come out of it.
Right.
It can just be something as simple as perversion,
Hmm.
or all the way to people getting inspired and actually doing it in real life.
Hmm.
Now that is the extreme end of it, and I
Right.
think that's where governance comes into picture, is to make sure that there are consequences.
Okay, so you would rather allow these people go watch this graphic video,
Yeah.
and then after they come out, then it's the government's responsibility to make sure that the
Exactly.
effects of that should not
Yeah. So
spill over.
absolute free speech should also come with absolute consequences.
Okay.
Like, then I think then it's the fair spectrum of like, if you want to advocate free speech, because the moment you talk about censorship, free speech is dead there and then. It can't be like censored free speech is not free speech then, because then there is no end to it, no. Because then it becomes thoda sa subjective ki.
But okay, so Abbas, same question to you then. Like,
Right.
I mean, like, what he said is, I mean, he doesn't principally agree with banning the film, but the consequences of it has to also been dealt by the government, right?
Right.
So, like,
Yeah.
so what would you say? Would you ban it?
So would I ban it? I don't know and have an answer to that. But what I will say is, a lot of artists like Anurag Kashyap shared on Instagram not supporting the ban. They're saying, even if and they were all sharing that Voltaire quote that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend my
with
right,
death, yeah.
defend till
Defend
death
your-
your right to say it,
yeah.
right? Now, I have a modified version of that quote
Go on.
in regard to the Kerala story. What you're essentially, if you're supporting the Kerala story, what you're saying is, I do not agree with your fudged facts and false narrative, but I will defend your fudged facts and false narrative till a mob blinded by a poison comes and kills me. Okay? Because
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
because films like the Kashmir Files and the Kerala story, and like you rightfully mentioned, as you also Meghnad, you're saying if there is a piece of art which may radicalize or may polarize an audience, then it's the the government's responsibility to monitor that in some way, shape or form, which is why we have a censor board also, but that's a whole different issue. In this case, in the case of Kerala story, that is being used as a tool in political rallies. The Prime Minister is saying, go watch it. The UP Chief Minister is making it tax-free. But another state Chief Minister is banning it.
Banning it.
So there is definitely a sense of go watch this film because we want you to take only a certain thing out of it and
Yeah.
apply that when you go to the vote booth, to the polling booth to vote. Right? So is banning the answer to that? I don't know. But some sort of an action that I think comes from the censor board. The censor board should have taken off pieces of dialogue and stuff like that, which may be inflammatory. Now, why is Anurag Kashyap supporting it? Of course, because his first two films were also banned because they were considered too violent and too
Yeah.
controversial. So I get where he's coming from.
Right.
As an artist, like you said, absolute free speech should happen. But it also has to be in context. According to me, as a liberal, Kerala Story and Kashmir Files are being used as tools of propaganda to polarize the population against a certain community. Address that somehow.
So-
yeah.
so
And if Mamata Banerjee's answer to that is to ban it, at least she's taking some action. Is it the right action? I don't know.
Okay, but okay, so let's think about this,
I,
right?
I have another
Okay.
year to that. For example, this story came out, got banned in West Bengal, whatever. Have you seen the Dhruv Rathi video on this?
No, I
Not
haven't.
really.
It's going nuts, like viral, because he has done like a very good job of actually factually countering the movie, right? That I think is what is necessary.
Exactly.
I feel like, which
Exactly.
is the story. Again, I'm not comfortable with banning it
Right.
for more than one reason. One is, of course, that sure, you start banning one idea, you don't know where it ends.
Exactly.
Right, because one thing that makes America great, according to them and according to the world, because it is great,
Yeah.
I guess, is that they allow free flow of ideas. Right, and right at the beginning, initially I used to think, no, there need to be restrictions, but now I don't, because even the shittiest of idea might lead to a good idea. That's where I come from, right?
Yeah.
And as a classic liberal, I would say, which we will come to. What does that mean? I would say that banning is not the answer.
Okay.
Again, absolute free speech. Do I agree with it? I am slowly saying yes now. Not completely there yet, but I can see my ideology changing slowly towards yes.
Right. But absolute free speech also then covers hate speech, right? So how does one address that if you
So-
are in favor of absolute?
So that's the thing, right? Also, I feel like it's also important to make hate speech a part of our education per se. At least the fact that you need to identify what is hate speech and what isn't, right? So when you let's say ISIS beheading, right? You keep saying, oh, ISIS beheading, but when you're actually seeing it, you should also have this thing where you're like, yeah, this is bad. Like, like that visceral effect that
Exactly.
comes from, oh God, what the hell did I see, right? And this is horrible. I feel like that is also important to
Exactly.
some extent. I speak from a position of privilege also.
100%, yeah.
That's there, right? I mean, since I'm not the target most of the time, sometimes I am. Even if like people are boycotting me online, I would still say don't ban anyone who is doing that. Let's put it that way. If someone boycotts you,
Yeah.
would you be okay with it?
Boycotts me.
Like you have power, for example.
Right.
You have authority.
If someone boycotts me, yes, as long as it doesn't come to a point where they're like, we boycott you so much that we will send a mob to your door to beat you up.
True. That I mean,
Yeah.
violence, of course, there is.
Exactly.
We need to also
Yeah.
like draw that line where
Yeah.
if you're inciting violence, if you're putting out an address, that's not free speech. Right? That's not.
Yeah.
That's a threat then. That's a crime.
That's a threat, actually. So, in liberalism, there are three key ideas, right? First is the cornerstone, as they call it, is individual rights and freedoms, right? Which essentially means that nobody else can dictate and narrate what you need to do. So you have that much freedom to basically do it, but that comes with a condition that if your freedom is imposing on someone else's freedom, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So essentially you have a right, like individual rights, the other person also has individual rights, so you cannot violate each other's rights like just because you have that individual rights. It's a bizarre thing, but actually it's quite simple. It's not. The second is democracy. Democracy being, I mean, that is of course like a very liberal thing that everybody should have a voice.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I say democracy, not just does it mean voting, but everybody should have an equal voice is one of the things. And the third is rule of law, which is essentially the belief that every individual has an equal access to the law.
Correct.
And the enforcement of the law. So these are the three basic tenets of modern liberalism.
Yeah.
Comments. What do you think?
Sound great.
Sound great.
Perfect. Why aren't more people following?
But you know what? Like the first one, the individual rights part. I want to talk about that a little bit, right? Which is, what does that even mean? Right? What, according to you, would be like, let's say, put it simply, what are the rights that you think you have which you would like to protect?
Yeah. So first would be like the freedom to express. Now this is not just saying what I want to say, but also dress the way that I want to dress, eat the food that I want to eat, have the sexuality that I want to have, and all of these spectrums. Like these are all very personal. Have the right to marry whoever I want to marry. These are very personal things, right? That affect me directly. So I would say anything that directly affects my life, I should have control over those situations. I think that would be individual right to me. Instead of like a government or somebody who's a higher power dictating what is right or wrong for me.
Okay.
For me, one right I would like to protect is the right to privacy. What I am, like you said, what I am doing in my house, what I'm eating, who I'm marrying, what am I wearing, all of those things, my information, my personal information is something I would like to remain with me. Like you as an authority have the right or the power to control me, or not control, but monitor me when I'm in the public eye, when I am breaking a law, or when I'm in that purview of things. But in my personal life, in my personal space, the things that I'm doing are preferable to me as an individual. So do not impinge on those.
So the second part which you said about when you're an authority and you're allowed to sort of look at me in public, right? I would say that is against liberalism. Because, I mean, technically your individual freedom is sure in your home, privacy, etc. But also when I go out on the streets, unless I have committed a crime,
Yeah.
right, which gives a solid reason to track me, I don't think I should be tracked at all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the other way to look at it, a liberal would also say, as a liberal, I would also say that by Google tracking me, so one is government tracking you, the other is like a corporation
Right.
tracking you, right?
Yeah.
Even when let's say Google, Facebook, whoever is tracking me, I am essentially consenting
Exactly,
to them
yeah.
tracking me in a way because
Yeah,
I'm getting
it's
services.
hidden consent, right? Like you have consented to them using your information, and
Yeah.
in exchange for what they have to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So privacy though comes in where I can actually control how much I want to give out about
Right.
me
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
external world, right? So it can be an authority, it can be a company, whatever it is. Interestingly enough, there is an episode called What is Government? Sakshi, is this episode going to release after What is Government or before? After. So, guys, there has already been an episode which has dropped called What is Government? Please check it out. Usme, this very fun thing that was said. So, did you know how the right to privacy came about?
No.
So, it was a result of the Aadhaar case.
Okay.
So people, so a bunch of people challenged the Aadhaar program in general and said that, ek to it was passed wrong, it is encroaching individual rights and freedoms, etc. Classic liberals.
This is during the UPA era, right?
No, this is recently,
NDA
after
government.
the law was
Achha,
passed. So it was
okay.
in 2018, 2019.
Just to get the timeline
Yeah, so
straight.
2019 is when the judgment came allowing Aadhaar,
Okay.
but then they said that there needs to be a bigger ruling on the right to privacy. Because the first argument that the government made during the Aadhaar ruling was that India does not have a right to privacy.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court was like, we need to figure this out.
Forgot about that, didn't we?
Yeah. So then there was a constitution bench and then they gave the right to privacy. Now, as a result of that, you know what is happening?
What?
That homosexuality got decriminalized.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that was one of the big arguments that was used in decriminalization of homosexuality. Nobody would have thought the consequences that
Exactly.
a bunch of liberals were arguing against Aadhaar,
Yeah.
which gave us the right to privacy, which finally decriminalized homosexuality and actually might allow same-sex marriages.
Exactly.
I mean, like...
Yeah, because even like Justice Chandrachud, I think, mentioned this also, that now that we've come this far, this seems like the natural next step.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
to now finally legalize same-sex marriages.
Right. So, like when he was saying individual freedoms and he said that the right to marry. So, here's a question for you guys. If I say, sure, I'm okay with anybody marrying, not marrying, living together, marrying this, spectrum of genders, etc. Now, I personally feel offended when I see, I'm not saying this. Guys, please, I say, cut mat karna, please, random.
I like how he went back on his statement before saying it.
Yeah. Classic liberal. Self-censoring before you say it. No, I was saying, now if I am someone who opposes same-sex marriage, opposes in the way that, I see like these people staying there, I feel I suffer. I feel offended. This is not our culture. It makes me angry. Is that an infringement of my freedom? And should I be angry about it? And should I be allowed to basically stop them from doing that?
Again, right, like, so you're basically saying that as somebody from a third party, I would be offended at two people from the same sex getting married to each other. And whether or not I have the right to do that.
Right.
I don't think this is infringement of my freedom, is again because this is individualistic, right? This does not affect me in any way, sense or form, unless and until I want it to affect me.
But it is causing you a lot of trauma. I mean, made up trauma maybe, but like,
exactly.
I mean,
yeah, but then
it's
again,
hurting you.
Now that is a line which we can never draw.
See, that's my thing. Like, so, is that a reasonable thing to sort of say? Yeah.
So, that is that reason, that example where you're an Indian uncle
Yes.
is precisely why it's hard being a liberal in India. Because in such a case, in most other countries, the law and the sentiment would be on the side of the homosexual couple who's just moved in next
Yeah.
door.
Right.
Whereas in India, the sympathies are, or the preference is more with the person
Exactly.
lodging the complaint. A classic example of this, Comedy Central aired an episode of Schitt's Creek in which two men are shown kissing. Most other countries, if you don't like it, switch off the TV. No, in India, some uncle went registered a case against Comedy Central of the same thing. Okay, watching this is disrupting my and my children's this thing.
Corrupting us.
Corrupting our mind. This is not our culture. Comedy Central was taken off air for 2 days.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, in that case, again, you can say anything. Like, for example, I don't like Christians living next door to my house.
Yeah.
So, but the law does not legitimize that. They're like, if you don't like Christians living next to you, please move somewhere else.
I think goes back to what we were saying a few minutes ago, right? The Dhruv Rathi thing you were saying. I was going to say the same thing, that if you don't agree with an idea, shutting the people who are propounding that idea is not the solution. You give out better points. Inculcate.
Yes, but that doesn't happen in India.
Yeah, so in principle, right, since this whole conversation,
Yes.
like
Yes.
even with why this is possible in America and like in the West more than it is in India, I think is because we don't have those set of values. Like as a culture, we are not individualistic.
So
This is a very family driven and
Yeah.
thing. And so because of that, it also reflects in our law. Is why we didn't have an act of privacy. I would also like to make a logical extension is because what is law? It's essentially reflection of what the morality of the people is, right? That's where law comes from. That's why certain things are illegal because we consider them amoral. So we need to first start inculcating the fact that these things are okay, and then it will get
I
engineered upwards.
partly agree with that. I also think much of that is because the Britishers left the
Exactly.
rules which are archaic and outdated. So
Yeah.
there's also a lot of that in that example. But yeah, I mean, my point with that is that somewhere the authorities have to be like कि भाई तुमको नहीं पसंद आ रहा तो तुम कहीं और जाओ. हम रूल क्यों बदले तुम्हारे sentiments के लिए?
Yeah. So the rule of law part, right,
Yeah,
which is the third tenet, which is all the rules are applicable to everyone equally, and enforcement of those laws would also be done equally. So, like if a Hindu person has a right to live in one place, then a Christian person also has the right to live in that place, and a Muslim person also does, and a Sikh, Jain, whatever, all of them have a right to live everywhere. But
how Muslim get to marry for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But counter question, if
Yeah.
I own property.
Yeah.
So, okay, I will, before I put that question, I will have to go to the origins of liberalism, which I will come to after the break. But
Okay.
just a question to think about while going on the break. If I own property, right, I have an individual right to own property. I buy a flat, right? I buy a flat and I want to give it out on rent. Now, I can pick who I want to give out the rent. Now, assume that I don't want to give this out to Greek people, right? Yeah, that's my right now.
Yeah.
Because the flat is my personal property, man.
Yeah.
I'm a liberal.
Good. Yeah.
I'm a liberal. After this break, we will answer this very complicated question, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Puneet and Shad discuss a Chinese woman who wants to be a full-time daughter, the new 75 rupees coin, and a North Korean toddler who got jailed for life. In the second episode of All Things Policy Police Choki series, Javed Ahmed and Sri Krishna Upadhyay discuss the colonial roots of police legislation in India, the subsequent attempts to reform the Police Act of 1861, and much more. On Simplified, Chuck and Tony are joined by content creator Nitin Sundar, who tells them about how to start loving the IPL. And on Pulyabazi, Khyati, Saurabh and Pranay are joined by the co-founder of PRS Legislative M.R. Madhavan. He shares his insights on how India's democracy is improving the functioning of our parliament. Once again, do not forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We've got some super cool stuff over there for you and your loved ones. Follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, then do not forget to spread the word. You know, it really helps us a lot. And of course, don't forget to rate and review our shows on whatever platform you are listening to them. You can also find all our video shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cash Free Payments and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hello and welcome back to Explain Like I'm 10. This is the episode 3 of our ideology series. If you haven't seen it already, we have done an episode on socialism and capitalism. Those were 2 very fun episodes. This is the episode on liberalism, and since we are all liberals here, as you keep telling me in the comments again and again, हाँ, तो मैं तो बोल रहा हूँ मैं ही एक्सपर्ट है अब लिबरलिज्म का, मतलब बोलते तो है कि तू लिबरल है, तो मेरे से ज्यादा किसको पता होगा. So I'm the expert, he's the expert because liberal, he's the expert because liberal. So Librandu, libtard, liberal, welcome to this show. If you are a liberal, please leave a comment below. Be proud. Become an expert.
Yes. मैं भी लिब्रांडू कमेंटेड.
Exactly. मैं भी लिब्रांडू.
लिप टर्ड का लिप टर्ड भी हो गया अभी.
लिप टर्ड भी हो गया. I mean, वो भी होता है.
Keeps devolving.
वो भी होता है. So before the break, I put up this situation where I own a flat. I have kept a person. I have the complete right to keep whoever I want or not keep whoever I want because it's my personal property, man. I bought it. I built it. Please, I should have the right on my own property to do whatever I want. So here's the thing. I need to go, before I come to your answers, I need to come to the origins of liberalism because this is connected. Okay. So do you guys know when liberalism, when did it originate? Do you have any idea?
When Nehru became the prime minister.
I was going to say the same thing.
No, the answer is no. I don't know.
It's not. Nehru itna bhi अच्छा नहीं है. The person who came up with the person who came up with the whole concept of liberalism was this guy called John Locke.
Okay.
He's called the father of liberalism, right? His basic idea was that of life, liberty and property, right? He said that individuals have natural rights that the government should protect, and he said that it was your right to enjoy your creation without anyone destroying it. In this case, right, the flat is my creation. Nobody has a right to destroy it. Even if it's a tenant, I don't give a shit. I can choose. I feel like tenant A would be better as a tenant rather than this tenant B who is Greek. Because I do not think Greek people can handle my flat better. Should I be allowed to do that?
No, because you are clearly discriminating against the Greek. You have taken, for whatever reason, you have generally applied this idea that a Greek person will come to my house and destroy it or take away its sanctity because you have a bad impression of Greek people. Does that mean all Greek people are bad? No.
Yeah.
So I can make that if I'm a Greek person wanting to live in that flat and you don't give it to me, I will make that argument that you're discriminating, which is against the law. You shall not discriminate in a democracy.
I don't care. That's my property, my flat. I get to do what I
You're
want.
a bad person for discriminating against.
Thanks, liberal.
There's no law against that.
I'm so hurt you called me bad. Thanks.
Now get out of my property. So now this is where it gets a little interesting. Like when you say that rule of law is the third tenet of liberalism, the land of the law can always be discriminatory because it's still majority belief.
You mean the law of the land?
Yeah, the law of the land.
Yes.
Yeah, the law of the land. It can still be discriminatory and still be a law at the same time.
Like, give me an example.
So, like the decriminalization, the criminalization of homosexuality. Right. At one point, it was considered criminal, and that was through law.
But
like the rule of law.
That rule changing in other countries or even in ours, isn't it a marker of liberalism?
Yeah, of course it is. But I'm saying fundamentally, like what he's saying, the law is formed based on what I believe. So for this particular argument, the law is what I believe. Right. So I believe, and I have good reason to believe that person B would be a bad tenant for me than person A, and then I should be allowed to apply my beliefs through my law. Right. I should be able to define law that way and have the rule of law decide for me. Wouldn't you say?
Have the rule of law decide for you, yes.
So actually the rule of law would be in his favor.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
give me the keys.
I mean, technically, the reason why Abbas will never get the flat anyway is because you, as a Greek person, will have to go to court and ensure that the law is applied equally. right? But then that takes a lot of time and money
Right, yeah,
and all
yeah,
the
yeah,
things. So that, I mean, obviously, like, your right is being violated, but you can do anything about it technically.
Right.
Right? So on my part as a tenant, I can always make this argument that bhaiya, mera property hai. Because
Exactly,
look,
yeah.
John Locke, tu liberal, main liberal, dono liberal. What is the problem?
Huh.
Right? But then, thankfully, John Stuart Mill came along.
Oh, I
After
thought
him.
the John Stewart comedian.
Yeah. So much time never evolved
Now, John Stuart Mill came along and he reformed the idea a
Okay.
little bit. Reformed in the sense he added to it. He believed in everything that John Locke said, like life, liberty, property, etc. But he said that he championed the principle of harm, which means people should have the freedom to do what they want as long as they don't harm others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, technically, you can argue that by not giving me this flat
Yeah.
on rent versus person A ko, you're actually harming me.
Hmm.
Maybe that can be one argument.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, yes.
But then the definition of harm also can be argued upon, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say if we take another example, I have an office near which there is a mosque. Now, if the azan voice disturbs me, right? So they have a right to have a place of worship on that piece of land. Then does it come down to which building came up first? If the noise of the azan is disturbing me, and I say don't do that, and they say like it's our right to do it, you're harming us by telling us not to do this. Then who's,
I can say
who's
you're
the-
harming my sleep by not letting me sleep.
Like, I think then there's moderation also, no, in picture. Like, I think harm would be something, harm can be defined rather well, because it is anything that completely
But let's say
infringes-
nobody else has complained about it. The other residents of the building are like, no, doesn't disturb us.
Yeah, but like you can still prove, right? Like you can prove that this is harming me. Like it is proven scientifically that certain decibels are dangerous to us
Okay.
as humans.
And if it is within the decibels,
Then it's within their rights.
Okay.
Then that's subject.
then I'm the asshole.
Yeah, so yeah, so that's where the line of harm is, right? You just
Okay.
saying that I am harmed does not mean you are harmed. You are harmed when you're fundamentally like your right is infringed upon. It can be proven. Like the right to live. If I'm murdered, my right is infringed. So that
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
that can be proven, right? So that's where it's a crime. Like if the sound level is above the allowed decibel limit, then I am being harmed and I can prove it. So you're harmed if you can prove you're harmed.
okay.
So that's what I think. That's where the moderation would come into.
See, should I
picture.
add some confusion here?
Yeah, sure.
As a liberal, you said that you're not agreeing to anything being banned.
Yeah,
Why are you banning an azan?
I'm not banning it.
Right, but like you're saying that some mosque nearby shouldn't play it because you are you're upset,
Yeah,
you're
I'm-
harmed,
No,
you're
no.
getting deaf. What is happening?
Again, crime.
It's not a crime.
It is if it's above like allowed decibel levels.
Did you just call azan a crime? That's
If
not very
it's-
liberal of you.
Not azan. Okay.
Any
Ganpati
loud-
festival, let's
any
just-
loudspeaker,
Yeah,
huh?
any loudspeaker.
A.R. Rahman's concert getting
yeah.
cancelled. Like you saw that video, right? Where
Pune, yeah.
where in Pune, like 10 baje ke baad, some very ballsy
Police
police
officers.
guy just walks on stage very nicely.
Like, "Ye
and
band
is
kar."
like, "Ye band kar," to A.R. Rahman. And A.R. Rahman was like, yeah, I guess. Okay, chill. So
Yeah.
someone actually complained against an A.R. Rahman concert,
Right,
it seems.
right.
And of course, police came and
Thief
said,
of
"Ki-
joy.
But
10
there
baje
again,
ke
the
baad."
10 p.m. deadline is a law.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So that comes under the purview of breaking the law.
yeah.
yeah.
But-
so exceeding decibel levels also comes under the purview of
Are you
breaking the
sure
law.
though? I don't think there's a law which says
Yeah, yeah,
that
there is.
decibel level.
Because like
I'm not sure. We'll have to check this.
yeah, we
one.
can fact check this.
Yeah, we'll
Let me know
we'll-
if I'm if and how I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But I mean,
Going back to the tenant and
tenant
that,
thing,
Yeah.
tenant thing, right? So as a tenant, should I be allowed to not keep a Greek person again? My property, man. I
Exactly.
keep coming back to that.
That's what I was talking about. Ki like it's my
Okay.
property, so it's my law.
Let's go back to the first question. What is a liberal? And the dictionary definition is someone who's accepting of the other way of life.
Yeah.
So, if this person believes the Greek person has a different way of life, then accept it. Let him live in your house.
That's a good argument. That's a good argument. You used my definition against me. I like that. I like that
No,
a lot.
But I accept your right to be different.
Right.
I just don't want you to do that in my house.
Then you're not a good liberal. Again, I will say that.
Yeah, but I'm still well within my rights to do that, right?
Well, yeah, true. You're
So
well
that's what I
within your
was
rights.
talking about. Ki, like, if it's my property, whatever my belief system is will define what the law for that property is. Because
It's a very tricky situation, to be honest. To be very perfectly honest, on one hand, I can say individual freedom and my rights ensure that if I build something, I have a right to protect it.
exactly.
And if I believe, even if wrongly, that one particular person is going to harm my property and what I have built, then I should have a right to not let
Protect
that
it,
person
yeah.
stay there.
So, but then you are somehow drawing the connection between that candidate being a Greek.
Yes,
Right.
but again, it can be a made-up reason. It can be a wrong reason.
It can
but
just
it
be
is
a
my
prior
reason.
experience. Like, I had a particular kind of an experience with a particular kind of a person who had a certain context to them, and that led to me believing that the entire community must be like that.
Like also, like for example, I'll tell you. Acha, leave the Greek person
Okay.
aside,
Yeah.
right? Let's say I keep two bachelors in my flat, right? They don't keep the flat well. They trash the house, like whatever, college bachelors,
Exactly.
whatever. Now, the next time I have to give this out on rent, I say couples only. Right, but then couples only matlab शादीशुदा या बिना शादी के. Again, that is where trick. But anyway, but now I'm like saying flat out, if you're a bachelor, you can't stay. So I'm discriminating, but it is based on my experience earlier, even if it's just one experience.
So when does it count as an act of protection versus an act of discrimination? I think that's the question.
Yeah.
No, but that comes down to the fact that you're applying your one experience to a
Yeah.
population at large.
Yes.
Don't you guys think there is a problematic
It is.
angle to that?
No, it is. I'm agreeing.
This is all hypothetical. I'm not
but
kicking you out.
I'm trying to reach to your conscience, uncle.
Exactly, but I think that's where the crux of the argument is, right? Is what kind of fundamental values that we are creating. I think that is what will determine everything. As you said, when you watch a beheading video, we should create that sense in us to know fundamentally that this is wrong. Like, that is where the whole argument comes back to, like, even applied to what he's saying about the tenant thing. Just because one person hurt me in a way does not mean every person belonging to that particular community will hurt me. Now, my ability to think this is what we need to work
Correct.
towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think
my reason for so my reasons can also be reasonable. Okay, like hear me out. As a tenant, right now I am. Let's take my landlord for example. Right, my landlord is very nice to us. Right, like very nice to us because he always gives out his flat to married couples. Right. I mean, he gave it to us and we were like engaged or something, right? But his whole theory of that is that I have seen over a period of 30 years of landlording that the couples want to live there longer, right? Because they're looking for a place to settle.
Right.
They want to keep the house better because their parents, etc., also come over from
coming,
time
yeah.
to time. And therefore, I feel like this flat should go to only married couples. Is that reasonable?
I would say no, because that's the last point. That's why I think it should only go to married couples. You're taking a logical or illogical leap there.
Sure.
Sure, you've had an experience for that. That's why that correlation is still an assumption, I would say.
But it is a good assumption.
It may be a good assumption, but then it should then only go to married couples is something I don't agree with. You will find some bachelor who will also do all of these things, but is not married to someone else. That's their choice.
That's true.
Fair.
That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, I get it.
but then who decides?
The landlord decides.
No, like when we are saying that the landlord can't decide.
No, I'm not saying he
but-
can't decide.
No, he should not have this should not be we should be able to challenge his decision if he takes such a decision, is what you're saying, right? Like there should be
Or at
protection.
least argue the decision, if not challenge.
Argue though you can all you want, but that won't overturn what he's thinking. So you should be able to challenge what he's saying. But for that you will need a superior authority. Like somebody who is at a higher level who can say, no, what you're doing is discriminatory and you're not allowed to do that. But then that is, again, isn't that also counter to liberalism? That you're not letting somebody decide.
I'm exactly going there. Right? Because the right to individual freedom also means that classic liberalism believes that the government should have minimum interference into people's
Exactly.
lives. Right. So now there is okay. फाटे फोड़ना है थोड़ा सा मुझे. एक तो there is Indian liberalism, which we understand it how we understand it, which is a mess.
Nehruvian liberalism.
Which is a mess.
Yeah, it is.
It's a mess because our liberalism has principles of secularism.
Yes.
It has principles of democratic values. It has principles of socialism.
Yes.
And also justice in general, which is our constitution, basically, right? And that is sort of intertwined. What this tenant example, which is where government interference will come in less, is libertarianism more than liberalism, right? I mean, classically Western. But if you talk about Indian liberals, again, it becomes very tricky, right? Because of course there is this whole thing about individual freedom,
Exactly.
freedom of speech, right? We want freedom of speech. We want less censorship. We want less interference from government, but we also want the government to interfere wherever there are cases of discrimination.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's both.
Yeah.
It's
a
both.
double-edged sword. Yeah.
It's both, and it can get very confusing. Where do you stand on that?
No, but we're bringing in the government in cases of discrimination to act as a balancing factor, right? To make sure that justice is done there.
Yeah.
So in that, if you're keeping the government away on all other issues and bringing them in the role to carry out justice, then that's justified according to me. And that's still minimum governance.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a socialist also, I must say. Like in the socialism episode, if you heard it, you know that I'm a socialist also. I'm a liberal also. Sometimes I'm a capitalist also. Guys, that's the point of
have
this.
you had the fascism episode here?
Only one guess for that.
Even he won't be on it. It's just the guest talking.
We are talking about Elon Musk,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
As on fascism, Elon Musk. Okay, but the point being, I was just thinking about this the other day. The reason why we are doing this series of ideology, right? Even Sakshi was like, why you do this? But I told Sakshi, what?
Say it on the mic. Nobody can hear you.
She made the topics,
Right.
okay? Please don't accuse her of wrong things.
Don't violate her.
But the point is that I wanted to do this episode to basically also show that as I am sometimes a capitalist, sometimes a socialist,
Right.
and
Of
sometimes
course.
a liberal.
Yeah.
Right? When we do the episode on libertarianism, I don't know. But so far,
Soon enough. Yeah.
so far, I have identified on all three.
Yeah.
Right? Would you also say that is the case with you guys?
Yes, and
Yes.
I would in fact say that is what a real liberal would be, is to have like this fluid identity which can fit into multiple different things.
I love this.
Dal
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with the fact that liberal are dal badlu, but I think that is what it is. Like,
Nahi, dal badlu nahi. We are like the umbrella ideology
Oh,
under which
right.
everything comes.
because one of the first things that I said on the episode was that it is the fact of being a liberal is being okay with what everybody else is and being able to empathize with that a little bit. You don't have to agree with all of it, but you still have to have that courtesy to be empathetic towards it and to see that there might be some logic behind it. And if it's wrong, then I also have the right to say that it's wrong, but I can't impose saying that no, what I think is right and what you're saying is fundamentally wrong. I think that's what liberalism even is to, like, sort of be a socialist at times. Like, definitely a state should be welfare and we should be feeding poor people because there is nobody else doing it, but then we should also stop doing that after a while, because otherwise people will get addicted to it and then they will never find another source of income and all of that.
Again, capitalist myth, but I am not going there. Go on.
Different episode.
Yeah, different.
No, I also agree because, see, most of us in India, we grow up with conservative mindsets because it comes from our parents. And our parents' generation is more conservative than us, right? So we have to undo those aspects of whether it's same-sex marriage or marrying whoever you
Yeah.
want or dressing however you want.
Unlearning a lot.
Unlearning a lot of things. Like this is experience of way more with women, but while growing up, your parents will always have a problem with what you're wearing. Like wear certain kind of clothes, don't go out at this time, ye wo.
Yeah.
So that we kind of grow up with that. I'll give you an example. So when I consider my family very broad-minded and liberal and all of that, patriotic also. So when the this rule started that you have to play the national anthem before a movie begins in every theatre in India, and there was a pushback against it, my first thought back then was, why is there a pushback? National anthem hi to chala rahe hain.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. You stand up for a national anthem
Yeah.
for like 20 seconds and then you watch the rest of the movie.
52 seconds.
I don't know why these people are, 52 seconds. I don't know why these people are pushing back against it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now in hindsight, I see, okay, now when I'm there to watch a movie and the national anthem plays and when it ends, someone yells, Bharat Mata Ki!
Yeah.
Now he's imposing to say that Jai
Now
on
you are
us.
obliged to say Jai.
Obliged to say, now we have to, in a way, before any movie begins, prove our nationalism and our patriotism before the movie begins. So now I see what that does to a safe space where you've come to enjoy yourself. But when it came out when I was a teenager, I was like, हाँ क्या problem है इसमें? National anthem ही तो play करवा रहे हैं. So I think there are a lot of other things where Indians in general are conservative in some aspects, progressive or liberal in others.
Others aspects.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, way more diverse in India than any other country.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
बच्चे आ रहे हैं हमारे, मतलब अभी जिंदा हो रहे हैं, coming
जिंदा हो रहे हैं.
slowly पैदा हो
जिंदा हो
रहे हैं.
रहे हैं.
तो
Some term.
आ रहे हैं.
बच्चे जिंदा हो रहे हैं. Spawn हो रहे हैं.
But बच्चे जिंदा हो रहे हैं और बड़े हो रहे हैं. But think about it, right? Like right now we are fighting for the right to, same-sex marriage, right? And largely I would say millennials are okay with
Right.
it,
Yeah.
right? Maybe my parents not so much,
exactly.
but millennials, sure.
Yeah.
जो बच्चे पैदा हो रहे हैं, they might be one like, why are you marrying at all? Why am I marrying one person? I want to marry like 5 people. I want to marry one person without having sex with them. It should be a platonic marriage. I want that. I want my roommate to be identified as my partner.
Yeah.
We don't like sleep around, produce kids or whatever, but it's a platonic relationship. I think I'm satisfied in this, right? And at the same time, I'm dating someone else. That's the thing. I mean, I think liberalism is necessary.
Yeah.
For this very reason.
That's what I was also coming to.
Yeah.
Like I was reading up about this a little bit. Right? Every generation that has come, they've broken something.
Yeah.
Like they first broke having regular jobs. Then a generation came which broke marriage. That it's not entirely necessary. Now again, in the West, India is still catching up on that. Like we are at the cusp of breaking marriage finally, like questioning the constitution of marriage and all of that. There will be a generation that comes after this which might break gender as we know it.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a gender at birth. Like sex is different than gender as we've already established. So I don't even have a gender and so on and so forth. So like I think this is also like the bracket of liberalism, right? It's progressionist. Like because every new generation that comes, what the previous generation thought of as a movement and as a rebellion is now the norm for them.
Question.
Yeah.
So from what you're describing, it sounds like liberalism is the default condition as the generations go forward. Yes?
Default I don't know about, might be.
I would say
but
yes.
Then,
But by observation, it does feel like it.
No, I'll explain why.
Okay.
First I'll explain why. Yes, because let's say you would say that, oh, this is such a privileged thought. Like for example, right? I would say that, let's say, same-sex marriage is considered a privileged thought, quote unquote, right? I mean, just popular opinion. But what I would say is that even in our parents' generation, live-in relationships were a privileged thought.
Exactly.
Right.
Now they aren't.
They're a norm.
Now
Exactly.
they really aren't, because I think even in smaller towns and everyone is getting much more liberal about relationships.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, I would say that progressive people are by default curious. They want to expand their belief systems to include other belief systems, may it be capitalist or whatever, etc., which is the sign of progress of humanity in general.
Exactly.
But then I would ask a counter question. According to me, India in 2023 is a more conservative country than it was, let's say, in 2002 or the 90s. We could make jokes openly about politicians. I remember Movers and Shakers, Shekhar Suman used to give jokes with names and everything, all of that. We were definitely way more liberal and open-minded in our art forms. All of that is closed in a lot now.
But that is a function of the third tenet, which is rule of law.
Exactly.
I mean, I would say that Shekhar Suman still exists. What Shekhar Suman said also still exists. You know, like, I mean, I would say that, let's say, Twitter, right? Indian Twitter, sure, there is censorship there. But at the same time, I would say that there is also this outlet to expose a lot of, you know, views and, you know, like express a lot of views, etc. So many, like, for example, if you want to write like an anti-government whatever, Telegraph would let you in any day.
Sure.
Right? So,
I'm not saying that there aren't avenues. Of course, and print media, I think still by and large, the major thought process or the ideology you'll find there is a liberal ideology.
Correct.
But it is withering away.
oh, absolutely.
Bit by
I
bit.
would say the rule of law part which I mentioned, that is the problem there, which is essentially a government/governments. I would also include West Bengal in this right now because of the Kerala story thing. They are using the rule of law to discriminate
Sure.
Exactly.
instead of preventing discrimination.
Also, Mamata Banerjee has a history of sending a cartoonist to jail because she wasn't happy with the...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, she has a very toxic relationship with free speech, basically.
Yeah.
So she's like, no. She's like, no. मतलब सेंटर में बोलना है मेरे को, but मेरे स्टेट में no, ऐसे नहीं करना है. That happens. I mean, like, that is again a function of being a liberal. Like, मुझे दोनों पसंद है selectively. That's why. Okay, so let's address the last part of this, right? You get accusations as a liberal. You get accusations as a liberal, maybe tangentially sometimes. I also get them. Let's figure those out. Are liberals hypocrites?
Yes. I mean, let's take this Kerala story example. We are against the ban we are for the ban on Kerala story, but we were against the ban on the BBC documentary. Why? Because that suits your ideology. This doesn't suit your ideology.
I'm not okay with the ban on Kerala story, by the way.
Okay, no, I'm not saying you specifically, but the general dialogue on social media. If you go, when the BBC documentary came out, it was controversial. Everybody should see it. It's exposing the truth. Now, when this comes, the other side is also saying this is exposing the truth. We want to sit, but we're like, no, this doesn't suit our line of thought. So if this is getting banned, some people seem to be okay with it.
I will reject such people from liberalism because I am now the expert on liberalism. Yes. These people are rejected.
Maybe I was a little too quick to say yes, but there is a bit of that. But I won't say it's exclusive only to liberalism.
Exactly.
Every ideology
hypocrisy is just human
hypocrisy.
nature.
Yeah. It is hypocrisy.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think liberals are hypocrites?
I don't think so. Like, I don't think we are hypocrites because we are liberals.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Hypocrisy is a human trait.
Yeah, like people from the conservative side were also
Of
against were also for banning the BBC documentary, like hurts national interest and all of that, and now in favor of not banning the Kerala story. So like even that is hypocrisy, but it's on the conservative side. So I think hypocrisy is human nature. We are liberal despite of that.
Nice. I like that. I agree. This is something I'll use.
Reel mil gaya.
Reel mil gaya. Okay. Liberals have an agenda.
Yes.
What agenda do you have?
I think everybody has an agenda, and liberals also have an agenda. We are just less imposive of it.
But what is your agenda?
Humanitarian agenda, less discrimination. Everybody should have individualistic rights, and I will always keep propagating those.
I'd say again, who doesn't have an agenda?
Yeah,
like
sure.
Everybody has an agenda.
By default.
Our agenda, when I say our as in the liberal agenda, is for
your
the...
agenda.
Your agenda, my agenda.
Liberals, your agenda is different from my agenda.
Is for the inclusion and equal rights for all, which ultimately, according to me as a liberal, will lead to a more a better future for the country. Please vote for.
Oh, yeah. Please vote for the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
I would actually agree with both of you there, right? You know, like, which is, do I have an agenda? My agenda is to expand the knowledge of humanity. I don't know. I mean, like, just like out off the top of my head,
Right,
I'm just
right.
thinking, what is my agenda?
Right.
Yeah.
But my agenda is pretty much similar to yours, which
Yeah.
is to basically protect the vulnerable.
Yeah.
As much as I can, you know, given my
Yeah. Or like at least make the people responsible do what they
exactly,
they're
and
supposed
question
to do.
authority
Yeah.
all the time.
But I have a question, Meghnad. Isn't the same thinking or same line of thought of the other side? They will say, we are also protecting the vulnerable. Only thing is, in our mindset, we are the vulnerable. The majority is in danger, and we are protecting the ones who are in
So
danger.
if I may make somewhat of a radical opinion here, right? I think liberalism is more inclusionary in who is counted as a vulnerable. Not the same with conservatives. Like you are a vulnerable, but if you have certain context in your life, then you might not be as big of a vulnerable.
I'll give you
as
one
somewhere else.
live example of something that happened to me, which was very bizarre. So back in my news days, etc., we made mad fun of Arnab Goswami, like mad fun, like, you know, like he's useless, he's whatever. Then the Maharashtra government arrested him for a very fake case.
Yeah.
To be honest, it was a very massively made
because
up
nothing came
case.
out of it.
It was like abatement of suicide or whatever. And he went to jail for like whatever time. We opposed it.
Right.
Like, I mean, I particularly opposed it. I said that, listen, like, I mean, sure, I don't like the guy, but I don't agree with him going to jail.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I don't want him to go to jail for this, whatever he is doing. If he commits murder, sure, but like, I mean, that's not what he did.
Yeah.
So, us time pe, I got so much hate from people who I thought were of my similar
Yeah.
ideological
I had
bent.
a thing about this. Like I wanted to ask the both of you, do you think slight criticism for the liberals especially, I wouldn't say the same of like alt left, जो एकदम communist or like JNU छाप जो बोलते हैं basically. It is what it is, guys.
Right,
Come on, but
extreme left.
Yeah.
Nirmala Sitharaman, go on.
No. Kanhaiya Kumar. Yeah. I always criticize the Congress leaders more because they are not capable enough to like come after me.
Fight back, yeah, of course.
साक्षी ये कट कर देना है पता लगा कांग्रेस वाले भी मारेंगे कट दिया yeah. So I had a question for the both of you. Do you think liberals especially are more disintegrated and somewhat cannibalistic to that extent?
So you mean that because of such differences, which is like, oh, I'm standing up for Arnab Goswami,
Yeah.
and the others are like, oh, क्या कर रहा है रे तू, ये तो enemy है हमारा.
Yeah.
We splinter?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And I think this is more on the liberal side than
But
on the conservative
isn't that
side.
actually a property of liberalism?
It
is, but when it comes to electoral politics, it doesn't work in our favor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the other side have their agenda
That's
straight.
what I was saying. Ki, like the conservatives and like again, as you said, not conservatives. I might not understand what that means, but the other side of everybody who does not consider themselves a liberal, I think they're more organized and more unified in that sense, that they're able to accomplish and propagate their agenda better than liberals because we are so fractured and so disintegrated.
Because we are accepting so many ideas from all over the
Exactly.
places, so that not
Becomes a clusterfuck of
one
sorts.
idea which actually leads to the votes.
Yeah.
Essentially, is that your point?
So
Yeah.
like, does that also mean that that's why people say that liberals are not capable of bringing about change?
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with that. And I'm okay with that, to be honest. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'll tell you why again. My thing is that, okay, so the basic tenets of liberalism, if we revise them, right? One is individual freedom. And also like the fact that everybody has individual freedom, but then if my freedom is imposing on someone else's freedom, that shouldn't be done. Because that person also has individual freedom. And the rule of law should ensure that everyone is equal, we are not discriminated against, and everyone has a voice. Three things, right? I feel like that basic ideology works for me regardless, right? Because it's like, if more people thought this way,
Correct.
if more people, I feel like, accepted these basic tenets of liberalism, there would be this tribe of people which would have diverse interests, but each of them will have a voice. Right. So they might not agree on which party to vote on, one party to vote on. But collectively, they might vote for multiple parties.
Yeah.
But because their basic tenets are similar, they will form a coalition government. I love coalition governments.
Yeah. Even I love
I
coalition.
hate majorities.
Yeah.
I absolutely love coalition government. I want the government to be perpetually confused so that it does not interfere in individual lives because it's useless.
Right.
And therefore, I am forced to work harder and do more.
Yeah.
Right? To basically get what I want. But at the same time, they do agree to the fact that अरे अगर हमको votes जीतना है तो हमको welfare देना पड़ेगा.
Right.
Yeah.
Ideal situation according to me.
Yeah. So can we then say that what we essentially mean is, when I said we're not able of bringing about change, what liberals actually believe in is, if we create the right circumstances and the right situation, change will come.
Yeah.
And like, you don't need like active
because-
involvement into it.
Because I think couple of minutes ago, as established by you, liberalism is more of the default ideology
Exactly,
as generations
So
come
you
along.
don't need like absolute majority and make like absolute decisions.
Because protesting, for example,
Right.
is a very liberal thing that is considered popularly a
Yeah.
very liberal thing, right?
Huh.
But it does match with the tenets, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What would
It's
you
a
say?
disagreement at the end of
Yeah,
the day.
you were saying something, sorry.
What were we talking about before this?
So will we splinter? Like, do liberals splinter because of their...
As coalition, you're saying you
yeah.
prefer a coalition government, but then you're closer to my age, Meghnad. So you've lived through that tumultuous times in the 90s where every year there was a new prime minister. We had some 6 prime ministers in 4 years. So isn't that harmful to a democracy, that your population is expected to vote every year for an election just because you can't keep your shit together?
So-
at least with a clear majority, it's like, these people will survive for the next 5 years.
So you mean stability?
Stability.
I
yeah.
think that's overrated.
Okay.
I think that's extremely overrated because like the pace at which we are changing as a society only.
Yeah.
Like for example, अभी AI आ गया, right? हमारे यहाँ पे data protection bill बना ही नहीं अभी तक. Like social media आके हमको 10 साल हो गया. Like in the US, in Germany, etc. They made the GDPR,
Yeah.
right? Which is like protecting individual rights. And हमारे यहाँ पे same time, actually years later, हमारी government बोलती है you don't have a right to privacy.
Yeah.
So we are not keeping up with the
Right.
world in any case, right?
Yeah.
So I don't understand this whole concept of stability. गवर्नमेंट स्टेबल है नहीं स्टेबल है मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है
functioning है कि नहीं है?
functioning है कि नहीं है that matters more to me, right? You know, like I mean, even if it's like a, so that's why I'm saying, right, like if it's a useless government, a coalition government which is slow, which is like you know, like an iceberg which is moving very slowly, people are sort of forced to adapt in those gray areas that they have left,
Okay.
and therefore I feel like progress becomes faster.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that is what I feel. Again,
Right.
I might be way off center here,
Right.
Yeah.
but I just thought that is where I am right
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Anything else you want to add before we end?
I have a couple of points. So there's a quote that our founder Amit Doshi said on an episode of Cyrus Says, which I think should be on t-shirts.
Okay.
I don't know if it's his own or he picked it up from someone, but he said truth has a liberal bias, which I think is a great quote.
What does that mean though? Truth has a liberal bias.
That truth will always be on the side of on the liberal
side of things.
whatever you want to make of it.
Actually, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot
Perfect
of
sense.
sense.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah.
a lot
yeah.
of sense.
Also, sorry, as a comedian, I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you this. There is this one more thing that people say, that liberals make great comedians.
Right.
Right. Why is that a thing?
So that's a question I have also been trying to find an answer to.
Yeah.
That why isn't conservatism funny? Because I think you are more the idea, comedy is all about exaggerations, right? You are trying to put someone in a state of mind which is not natural, whereas conservatism is trying to convince them the old way of life was better. So I think that inherently doesn't fit with the comedy mold, where you're trying to tell people, oh, let's go back to the good old days, whereas as compared to someone where a liberal comedian is open to making fun of the authorities and punching up,
Yeah.
where that's somewhere similar to, like you said, protesting is considered a very liberal thing, right? Because you're going against the grain. I think comedy also somehow comes from that same train of thought, where you're rebelling against the norm,
Yeah.
which is I think is a liberal
Yeah.
value.
I also think it's because because you're a liberal, you're open to so many different ideas. It makes you more secure with your own ideas after a while, right? Like, okay, I'm okay with you being the person that you are, and I'm okay with that. Inherently makes me okay with the person that I am also.
Yeah.
है ना? And to be a good comic, you have to be like fundamentally thoda sa secure with the fact कि it's okay to make jokes. Because
Also self-deprecation.
exactly,
Yes.
Yeah,
it
so that
allows
is
you to self-deprecate. If
Yeah.
you're insecure in your own mind, you won't be allowing
That's
yourself.
all we have done on this episode.
Yeah, very secure.
Infighting, hypocrite.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
it makes you less protective of your identity, so to say, and more secure about who you are. That you know that making a harmless joke will not, in turn, end up making me less of a person and being, less of whatever identity I subscribe to. Like if I make a joke about not being about how bad it is to be rich, it will not make me being less of a rich person. You know what I mean? Again, replace rich with, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's the
Right.
same thing is said about journalists also, for example, right? Which is like, if you're a journalist, you are most likely a liberal.
Yeah.
It's same logic.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Journalists are built to question things.
Yeah.
And you cannot question things unless you actually are secure in your own belief system.
And okay with the answer that you
And
will
okay
get.
with the answers you get. Actually, that's a very scary thing, by the way.
Exactly, yeah. I
For
can imagine.
example, going on elections, right? I always believe that nobody is unbiased. Everybody has
Of
their
course,
biases.
yeah.
So obviously, when I went to elections, I want a particular party or side to win, right?
Yeah.
Which is everybody knows which side. तुमने comment में तो डाल के रखा।
Yeah.
तो like so
The same ones who are funding us.
same ones. So if I go to this elections, right,
Huh.
which is going with this assumption that देखते हैं,
Huh.
my stories are that way. So now I'm telling my audience, listen, I have this bias. Everybody knows. Again, as I'm saying, but what becomes difficult is when that gets challenged constantly on the ground. When you hear people on the ground telling you what you don't want to hear, and you have to put that out,
Yeah.
right? And it hurts sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but you have to do it, right?
Yeah.
As a journalist, you have to do it. You
Yeah,
have to challenge those things constantly.
Yeah, but I think then that's what liberalism allows you to do.
Yes.
Like I don't know how true this is, but I think this is a value of liberalism, that it allows you to, be proven wrong yourself. It takes away this need of always necessarily being right about things.
But
Can I-
okay, now, so the last thing, go on first. Like,
Can I just then put a question to you bluntly? Is it more important to be a liberal or to win?
In what
Holy
context?
shit, Abbas. Getting down deep now. Okay, go on.
No, I think personally I would say it's more important.
Would you
to
rather be a
liberal.
liberal and be on the losing side and then be less of a liberal and be on a winning side?
I think if you're not a liberal if you're not okay with losing.
He's young, guys. He's still young.
Right. But what would your answer be?
It's tough, but like I said, it's getting tougher and tougher to be a liberal.
It's hard.
I would
guys.
like to win once in a while.
Yeah.
Guys, is what I'm saying.
Next time you call me a liberal, do remember how difficult this is.
We'd also like some W's in our corner.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have time? I had
go
a
on.
few more things.
Yeah.
There's this comic strip about I forget the name of the artist. Will probably put it in the description. But the moral of that comic strip was, it's essentially about how we have to, in order to maintain that tolerance exists in society, we have to be intolerant towards the Nazis.
Yeah.
So where does that fit into liberalism? If we are more the tenet of it is to be more accepting and more inclusive, then how can we shut out an entire ideology in order to make sure?
This actually is a very interesting. This is where you will be called a centrist.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking was, everybody has a right to say what they want, right? Everybody has a right to a platform. No, they don't. I don't think so anymore. What I think is, like if you are, as I said, it wouldn't make me less of a liberal to say this, because I feel like by platforming certain people with extreme toxic ideas, with extreme discriminatory behavior, you are actively harming society at a large.
Right.
Right? You are trying to brainwash people into thinking that a particular group is to be hated or to be harmed or to be economically boycotted. I feel like all of those things are coming from your speech,
Yeah.
which you have used, and that is wrong. But that doesn't, like, when I oppose that, I don't mean that they should be deplatformed.
Okay.
Right? I would though question the person who put them on that platform, right?
Okay,
Which I will be
right.
like, why did you choose this person?
Right.
Why did you do this? So we were doing this, right? Where there were like some hateful news channels which were doing hateful things. So we were like, we were questioning the advertisers.
Right.
Yeah.
कि भैया क्यों पैसा दे रहे हो? बताओ ना. Like, I mean, do you
Yeah.
believe in these reasons? Then say it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's okay. If you believe in this, just say it.
Yeah. I think,
Nobody did.
yeah. What confuses people is, again, being a liberal does not mean you agree with every notion that
Right.
there is.
Right.
I still disagree with what the Nazis have to say, and I still 100% think that they should be fought against. And
But you will fight to death for the right
Right
to
to
say
say
it.
it.
no, so that's the thing. Then I have to make my voice louder. Then
Okay.
But in case of Nazis, okay,
Huh.
this is actually a very interesting, confusing question, right?
But I think then isn't, again, extreme argument. Like, it's Nazis is a very extreme right and just an extreme situation in general.
They didn't become extreme overnight, right?
They
That
did.
was a gradual.
It was gradual.
Yeah.
That's true.
in Germany, though, is it in Germany or France where it's illegal to deny the Holocaust?
It's in
think
many countries.
it's
I
in
think
many-
America
yeah,
also.
right?
I
So
think
essentially-
in Austria also, I think.
Yeah, it's so I feel in those countries they have also figured this out, right? Where obviously their one generation above, second generation above people were actually in prison camps
Exactly.
killing people,
Right.
right? You know, and they were involved actively, right? So to get rid of that, do you just ban everything they did? Like, I mean, do you ban what your personal collective history is,
Right.
or do you teach the next generation to confront that shame
Right.
and then basically say ki nahi boss, this was wrong,
Yeah.
what you need to do is not that.
Correct.
Yeah, so if you end up sort of banning everything which is like sort of like Nazi
Yeah,
behavior,
yeah.
right?
Then you're essentially hiding it. Yeah.
I feel like you're also hiding it. So that's the same reason why the Kerala story ban, I feel like, is
Correct.
not a good idea, because I feel like more people should be able to speak against it
Exactly.
because they've watched it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but again, goes into such tricky territories. no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My head hurts.
Okay, one last
Yeah.
thing. So the CCTV example that we used, the government monitoring us example that we used
Yeah.
earlier in the episode, and you said that as long as I'm not committing a crime, government should not be able to monitor me. In case of surveillance, like let's say CCTV cameras, there is an assumption you may commit a crime. So you
Yes.
need to be under surveillance.
No, so
Where does that fall in the purview of liberalism?
So, you know, there's this, like, I was also thinking about this when I think Aadhaar was happening and a bunch of, so someone gave me this very fascinating example, right? So the reason why privacy also needs to be protected is because human behavior changes when you're in surveillance. For example, there's this prison yard, right? And there is a tower, right? In the tower, there's like a tinted glass, right? Now, sometimes that glass is open and you can see like the warden standing there looking at you,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes the window is closed, right? But the thing is, you've been told that the warden is watching you. Right? So the warden can just fuck off
Yeah.
for months.
Yeah. But you will have this notion. in
You
your
as a
head.
prisoner on the yard will always assume there is someone watching you.
Yeah.
So your behavior will change.
Correct.
Right, your behavior always changes based on who is watching you or who the audience is, right?
Yeah.
So that is one of the big reasons why privacy in public spaces needs to also be protected, right? So when you say that there are CCTV cameras everywhere, sure there are. Unless I commit a crime, they shouldn't be able to track my movements.
Okay.
So the CCTV camera is watching me, sure, but I shouldn't be actively tracked preemptively.
Yeah.
Okay.
कि अच्छा ये कैमरा ए से वो कैमरा बी में गया, फिर कैमरा जेड में दिखा, फिर कैमरा उधर दिखा, फिर उसकी गाड़ी का प्लेट ये था, फिर वो वहां पहुंच गया, राइट? दोज आर ट्रैकिंग बिहेवियर
Yeah.
Okay.
and that shouldn't happen unless I have committed a crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Sure.
does. It
So
does.
even within liberalism or in a liberal construct, some sort of as a cautionary measure, if it's used, it's fine.
It's a let's put it this way, it's raw data collection.
Okay.
You shouldn't be able to process it.
Got it.
Right?
Got
so
it.
like
Yeah.
That's where the liberal value of the government needs to come into picture, is that I won't process this unless and until absolutely necessary.
absolutely necessary and
the-
without my permission.
Exactly. The citizens should be trustworthy.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
citizens should have enough trust on the government
Right.
to do that.
Like for example, I might lose my phone, right?
Exactly.
And in some way, and then I should be able to use this very system,
Yeah.
which is built to do surveillance, to actually find my
Exactly.
phone.
And I think the other thing is public decency also needs to be considered. No, that like if you're being indecent in a public space, I don't get to consent to seeing you naked on road. It's forced upon me. If you're just roaming around naked, there is no no warning for me. I was never asked for my consent to do that. And I think it is the lack of consent that makes systems like CCTV cameras necessary on the streets.
Oh
Is-
God, no, Nikhil, don't go there. Another thing has opened up in my head. Do not go
Yeah,
there.
that's a different rabbit hole, but yeah, to cut it short, that's what I think is why it's important. And then it's the intention of the government, as we established, that they will not process the data without my consent.
Yeah. Is that? Are you done with your
Yes.
points, Abbas? Do you have any points, Nikhil?
No, not right now.
But yeah, that was a great episode, guys. I feel like we have addressed a bunch of things
Yeah.
and opened many more questions, as
Yeah.
liberals often do.
Yes,
So
the
we should be
fundamentally
proud.
curious natures.
Yeah, we should be proud of that. But I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you are a liberal or not a liberal or whoever you are, please leave a comment below about what liberalism means for you. What does it imply? What does it mean? How do you use it in your daily life? Do you even care? All of it. Just leave it in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We are on the All About Now feed. The All About Now feed has How to Citizen, which is hosted by me and co-hosted by Shreyas. And it also has Page 10, which is hosted by Abbas
Yes.
and produced by Nikhil. And I am a panelist.
Regular panelist.
सब लोग हम internally channel बना के मस्ती कर रहे हैं. So please watch all our shows. Do all of it. Where can people follow you guys and what do you want to plug?
Don't follow me on the roads. But if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at @Joshi_Nikhil.
Yeah.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Abbas Momin and Abbas Momin88. I tweet very liberal tweets, so
Yes.
do follow me. And listen to Page 10 and the other show I do on IVM Pop called Has It Aged Well? And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much, guys. Follow me on Meghnad and Nerd on YouTube. By the time this comes out, I might have come out with another video on that one as well. So please do follow. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week for another ideology episode, maybe.
IVM.